standing at the border of what we used to know. 5 points in the darkness make a different kind of show. They say we're better together, but what do they know when the stars align differently down here below? And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Remember all the stories that your granddad told about a republic that wouldn't be controlled. Now the suits in the city say we've all been sold, but there's a fire burning that just won't get old. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. They draw their lines on paper, we draw ours in the sand. Some dreams are getting closer, while some don't understand. Don't understand. The highways stretch forever toward a setting sun, where cattle graze on memories of battles won. They say unity's the answer, but maybe we're done with playing by the rules of the chosen one. Oh, maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Our own sky. Our own sky.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is that time again, and I gotta say, it's good to not be screeching in here at the last second, right? It's really nice to be able to get here, get kind of settled in, you know, take a few sips of coffee before I even started. None of that rushing in business today. Not that I have not been busy. It's all about timing. Anyway, look, I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight for Late Night Coffee Talk. It is I think we're going to have a good one tonight. We got some questions that came in, and there's going to be some others. You guys are going to hit me with lots of questions, as you usually do, and I'm cool with that. But before we get to any of that, let me go ahead and take care of the business. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. It is that time once every week, generally, where I take a break from working on Texas independence. I come in here and I fire this up, and I let you ask whatever questions you want, right? Whatever questions you have on your mind, whether it be about TEXIT or the TNM or self-determination, independence in general, or politics or culture, economics, whatever it is. I'm here. You guys even get to ask me personal questions from time to time, which, I'm generally not opposed to. But I want to welcome you if it is your first time. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back week after week after week. And now, how do you ask questions? Well, it's quite simple. Wherever you are watching this from, find the chat and drop your question in. So let me work through it. First and foremost, you should be joining us from the Texan app, right? If you are not watching us live streaming on the Texan app, hop over to where the cool kids are, right? You want to know where you can get that? It's literally the app for TEXIT supporters, right? For TNMers, for Texiteers, whatever you want to call us. We prefer the term Texan, but it's the one for us. It's the app, right? Both mobile and desktop. You get it by going to the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or you can just go to Texan.app and get over there. We live stream on there just as well as we do these other places that I'm going to mention. But the difference is it's a community of people just like you, people that support Texas and Texas independence. If you're watching on any of the other places, YouTube, quite simple. Find the chat. Drop your question in there. While you're there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And, do all the cool things. Super chats are active there as well still. So we always appreciate when people put jingle in the can to help keep this movement moving forward. I have learned it only gets more expensive the closer we get to independence. So anything is appreciated. It's 5, 10, whatever it is. Just, give according to your heart. But be sure to drop your question in as well. If you're watching on X or Facebook, same drill. Just drop your question in the chat. Same thing on Rumble. Drop your question in the chat. Kara is 2 walls, 3 walls, 4 walls that way. Monitoring the chat. She takes your questions and throws them over there into the big grab bag where I can go through and get them answered. And look, I'm here until the close of the hour, so I will get to all of them that I can. I try to lump some of them together by subject matter, right? And that happens quite often. One more thing. If you don't want to drop it in chat, don't want to make it available to everyone, you can drop it to me via email. You'll see the address down here on the ticker. Look for Coffee Talk at thetnm.org. That's Coffee Talk, all one word, at thetnm.org. And like I said, it'll be down here in the ticker, so you can drop it there at any time. Look, we've made it super easy. We're streaming multiple places on YouTube, multiple places on X, multiple places on Facebook. You've got the email available. We have our own internal app. I mean, it's all over the place, right? So we've made it easy for you to find us and connect with us and to ask questions. So, I guess the only thing, we could do a mail, like a mailbag thing, like where you literally send in a physical letter. I'm not going to encourage that too much, right? We already get a lot of mail as it is. All right. Let's see where we are real quick before we get started. You guys are getting questions in, so good to go. All right, before I start taking your questions, let me talk about a couple of things that are on my mind tonight. And I think they're probably on your mind as well, because I've gotten feedback, not questions specifically for Late Night Coffee Talk, but people sending in emails and wanting to talk about these things and getting things off their chest. So for those of you that are on the T&M email list, you will have received an email from me. Gosh, I guess it was Monday, right? The Texan brief, right? We've shifted it from Fridays to Mondays to make it a lot easier for you guys. That's based on feedback. So you guys still getting Texan brief once a week, but you're getting it on a different day. But one of the questions I asked in there was a question that was that we've been asking for quite some time. Started asking it when the TEXIT book came out. Asked it in the media ever since, and it's a question that I think is fundamentally proposed by the TEXIT book, and you've heard me say it before, and it's quite simply this: if your state, and I'm going to genericize this for non-Texans, but if your state was currently a self-governing independent nation, right? You had control over your own border and immigration policy. You had control over your own monetary and taxation policy, and all your trade deals and economic policy, your own national defense posture. You know, you had control over everything that 200 other self-governing independent nations around the world had control over. Would you, knowing everything you know about the federal government right now, would you vote to give that up and to join the Union? And, you know, in light of the release of the usexit.org campaign last week, and of course, with all the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence discussion, I threw that question in the bottom of the Texan brief. And I'm going to say that I was rather astonished at how many people took it upon themselves to write back with their answer in the negative. They would not vote to join the Union. Now, not that I think that people who are receiving the Texan brief are going to be ones that would say yes, but those of you that took the time out to respond in some of the thoughtful, logical, well thought out responses, I just had to say thank you, right? I mean, it's extremely encouraging to see that level of passion from people on that particular issue. And it tells me that it is a triumph of common sense, right? I mean, we're still effectively the same as we have been since 2022 on polling. So, you know, we've got a solid about 4 years where we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if the Texit question goes on a ballot, it doesn't just win, it wins big, right? We're not talking about tenths of a point squeaker or a single percentage point. It's going to be something where we wind up going, I think, double digits, you know, well over double digits. So this is, I think, folks, this is going to be, we are entering a time right now where all of these people that have harbored this idea, this sentiment in their hearts about Texas independence, I think the switch is flipping for them. And we're seeing it manifest in different ways. The number of people that are signing the petitions and registering their support on thetnm.org, those people that are, you know, they've been sort of lurking in the shadows on the edges for a very long time, that are becoming members of the Texas nationalist movement, that are executing the Texan declarations on the Texan app. These are all signs, but it's even more than that, because I don't know if you can feel it like I can feel it, but the mood is shifting. And I think November is definitely going to be that demarcation line. But I will say this, and then I will get to your questions, I promise. I will say this, is that if you are watching this, whether you're watching it live or on the replay, November is not when you should make your decision, because by then things have happened, right? Things will have happened, and you have a lot of catching up to do. And we have to be ready for when things happen in November, when these these sudden awakenings occur, we have to be ready. And that means that we have to have you to help us build capacity and be prepared to receive what is very likely going to come our way. Because when all of these things, all of the last hopes in that failing federal system have evaporated, have just gone like that, we have to be there for those people. We have to be there to show them that there is a way forward. And I see the frustration that people have on social media when they see these politicians and all of these other people doing these contortions to try to, fix all of these problems, but yet within the framework of saving the union or being within the union. And when the answer is there in front of their faces, right? Which is, if you don't like what the federal system is doing, if you don't think it can be ultimately fixed, or you don't have any reasonable hope that it'll be fixed, then the reality, the solution is quite simple. And it's that Texas becomes a self-governing independent nation. And now, with the launch of U.S. Exit, we've put that playbook in the hands of all 50 states. It's not just us. The 49 others now have an opportunity to connect and engage and form their organizations and do in their states what we are doing here. And it's practical. Gotten a lot of good feedback on that, but that's where we are, folks. We're watching it happen in real time. It's like a slow motion train wreck. And in that slow motion train wreck, as we're watching it, we are literally in the process of withdrawing from that train before it jumps the tracks. It's an exciting time to be alive. There's no doubt about it. So, that being said, one more announcement before I start taking your questions. I want to say this. I can't tease it. I'm going to tease it because I can't really announce it. But next week, something very special is going to happen. And you'll see some announcement about it before the next coffee talk. But good news is we now have a founding sponsor, right? Who is going to be sponsoring the Late Night Coffee Talk, going to be sponsoring some of the Texas News / Texas First podcast. And so you're going to see, and some of the work on the Texan Partisan. So you're going to see more of that. And we're very excited to have them join in the fight with us and to really just kind of take a step. We've never done anything like this before. So it is brand new, and I'm very excited and looking forward to introducing all of you to this new founding sponsor, this new founding partner. It's going to be really exciting times ahead. So be on the lookout for that announcement. Now, questions. Wow. I think we have some. Let's see here. Yes. So let me do this. Let me go ahead before I get to most of the. This is good. A lot of the Q&A is coming from the Texan app tonight. That makes me very happy. But let me do this. I gotta do a solid for our early in email senders. Okay. Okay, real quick, a follow-up to a question from last week. So last week, Buddy asked the question about rightly distinguishing between state, nation, and country, right? Because that's something that I talk about probably way too much. But he asked if I'd had similar thoughts on how the terms freedom, liberty, and independence are conflated. So for those of you watching last week, I said that, I covered a little bit about it, but I said I would write a full-blown kind of, I guess you'd call it an essay, right? An analysis. And I did, and it is posted on the Texan Partisan. So head over to TexanPartisan.com. If that question or that line of discussion piqued your interest, The essay is there, and you can read it now, or you can wait till after this is over and read it. But if you notice, one of the things that Buddy asked was about the differentiation I make between state, nation, and country. And one of the things that came out while I was writing the essay about freedom, liberty, and independence is, while I've talked about this difference as I see it from between nation, state, and country, I've actually never written about it. I've had pieces of it where I've talked about it, but I've never written out the full work. And so it's done. Like, I did it, and it's far more in depth than the essay that's on there, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do with it. But it's done. It's weighty, it's meaty, it's excessive, and I'm going to tell you, it's not light reading. So that's why I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with it. So there you go. But anyway, again, I said it on the Texan app, and I said it on, I think I posted about it on X, but thank you for that question, buddy. It motivated me to do something that I needed to do for a long time. So there you go. Okay. Chris sent in this question. He said, rather than supporting Texas independence, Representative Brian Harrison is on X stating he's going to help ban birth tourism in Texas. How is this legal? That is a really, really good question. A really good question. And oddly, I think it goes to some of what I was talking about a moment ago, which is, these weird contortions that these people, these knots they tie themselves into to try to mitigate the damage done by being part of the federal system, but still be in the federal system. And, you want to talk about having your cake and eat it too. They say that we're delusional for wanting independence, but these people, and I'm not talking about Brian specifically, but I'm just talking about sort of in general, that thought process. These people will contort themselves into the craziest knots. Like they should be trying out for the Chinese gymnastics team. I mean, the kind of bending these guys do to continue to try to fit solutions in a broken system. But here's the reality of it, right? And I will, Chris, I know you spoke specifically about birth tourism, but I want to just draw your attention back to the H-1B visa thing that I talked about. It was either last week or the week before, which is, digging into that from a sort of a status quo situation. So let's just talk about outside of Texas independence, what solutions there might be. And when you look at the H-1B visa situation, there's not a lot. The federal government has done an enormous, just a tremendous job. And I don't say that in a positive way. I mean, I'm just commenting on how effectively they've sewn up that lane and consolidated all of the stuff related to immigration at the federal level. Right. So, just like the H-1B thing, if Texas passed a law, again, we're talking about within the federal system. If Texas passed a law to somehow touch on the H-1B visa situation, the federal courts would come in and they would just chop it right off. Right. They would say, not your business. You can't touch it. And there's precedent for it. And they feel like they've got it sewn up. So for us, naturally, that road leads to Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation, right? Because self-governing independent nations get sovereign control over their borders and immigration. That is just by right. That's just the reality of it. So when we talk about these issues with the border and immigration and all those things tied to it, the reality of it is that for us to have any lasting say over those things, we have to become a self-governing independent nation. Does that mean that we don't challenge the federal system up until the time we become independent? No, absolutely. We should challenge them at every turn. We should make those judges have severe cases of diarrhea because they got to hear our cases so much and they got to tie themselves in knots over it, right? But one of the things that I talked about in 2012 before anybody else here was talking about it was that Texas should be mounting a challenge against the Supreme Court case of Plyler v. Doe with a, some sort of test bill that we absolutely know will be challenged in court, and then just ride the thing out, because I don't know that Plyler v. Doe survives the current climate at the judiciary. I just don't, right? But at the end of the day, we know that that's just a half measure. It's just at the whim of these courts. So to your point about birth tourism, I'm anxious to see what sort of, I guess maybe from a perverse curiosity standpoint, I'm interested to see from a policy standpoint what they want to try to do. How in the world do the legislators think that they're going to set federal policy in the climate that we're in, right? When you literally just had this whole thing over birthright citizenship, right? So, can they plaster over some of the cracks? Yeah, they could do some things. One of the things they could do is tell Texas that, say, unless you can prove citizenship, lawful status, the state won't issue a birth certificate, right? You could, some things like that, but those are, at the end of the day, those are kind of nuisance, right? They don't really fix the problem. So look, I don't know what specifically Brian Harrison's thinking. I do know that some legislators are looking at this particular issue right now and trying to figure out what specifically they can do. And again, they're hacking at the branches instead of chopping at the root. And that, we know, is Texas independence. Then we don't have to go Mother May out of anybody, right? So anyway, thank you for that question, Chris. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, this is not a question. This is a comment from Terry. He's quoting the article that I released about on the 250th anniversary, right? My 4th of July article. And the quote is, the 250th does not really ask what Jefferson would say. It asks whether the living consent to how they are governed right now. And he says, perfect. And I say, thank you for the feedback, Terry. All right. Let's get over here to some questions from, you know what? I've got some messages here. Let's see what we got. Hey, we got some contributions that came in. Super. All right. So a big thank you to David Brunig, who made a $100 contribution, to John Bolgiano, 1836. Sorry, guys, this thing keeps flaking out. Morris Brown, 25. Thank you. And Sharon Wright, 25. Thank you guys so very much. Because they come in that way, I don't have a way to flash them on the screen. We need to figure that out. At some point, I think we'll be able to. Okay, let's get to some questions from the Texan app. This one says, and again, these come in, they're anonymized. I don't see who asked them. So, double fun. It's the mystery, right? How do we store silver or gold in our own Texas facility? Since it's legal currency here, are we able to stop DC from going into it? Really good question. If you wanted to store gold or silver, any precious metals at the Texas Precious Metal Depository, I'd go to their website. I would pull it up on here, but I don't know that we're going to have time to do that tonight. But I would go to their website. The instructions are there. They're super clear about how to open up an account and how to handle all that. But the second part of your question, which is, and you can just search for like Texas Gold Depository or whatever, you'll find it. But here's the other one. Since the other part says, since it is legal currency here, are we able to stop DC from going into it? Now, this is an interesting part of the law, and this is something that I wish I would have pulled up. If I'd have had this question beforehand, I would have pulled it up. But it's interesting that the law specifically says that the state resists confiscation, right? So with the memory of what FDR did, there's literally language that was introduced with that was in the bill that got passed into law that says that they must resist confiscation. So that's a real interesting thing. Now the question becomes to what level they would go to resist confiscation. And I'm just going to say this: if we're at the stage where the federal government is trying to swoop in and confiscate privately held precious metals, then independence is pretty much a foregone conclusion. I don't know that the state would have to do anything to resist other than vote. But it's look, the fact that that's even on people's minds that could happen, I think is another very good reason for Texans to get this vote on independence and for us to become independent. So anyway, great question and thank you. Okay, next question. Will we be working with Alberta to help them leave Ottawa? Working with, I don't know. We've been in communication with some of the folks up there, but working with them, we don't. I guess this is a good opportunity to really clarify how we operate in relation to other independence movements outside of Texas. We don't ever insinuate ourselves into those situations, right? You will never see us parachute into a state and spin up an organization there that's basically just us. And then, kind of if you build it, they will come. I mean, that's not what this is, and that's not what we're going to do. And in fact, if there's already an independence movement happening, all we will do is offer to help, right? We don't come in, like I said, we don't insinuate ourselves into what they're doing. And look, our door's always open. It happens more often than you would think, where we get contacted by independence movements outside of Texas, and they say, "Hey, let's have a dialogue," or "We need help with this. What can you tell us? How can you advise?" It really is a lot of advice and consulting is what happens. Occasionally, we never donate directly or give money, but occasionally we'll give technical assistance. That's one area. We will help them with strategy. We will help them with tactics. We've had one of the things that led to U.S. exit happening is some of the work and the training and some of the organizational stuff that we do. We had other independence movements that said, "How do you do this?" And we said, "Okay, this is how we did it. Now you take it and adapt it for what you do." So that's kind of where it is. For the vast majority, it's just really keeping open dialogue, open communication, sharing successes, challenges, reinforcing one another's position, not maybe specifically, but self-determination in general. But in the case of Alberta, I would classify that as just sort of communication, general awareness. If they needed us for anything, I'm sure they would reach out. Would love to help them in whatever way. But look, at the end of the day, independence movements, and this is why our posture is this way. We can learn from one another. We can teach one another, but we absolutely cannot do it for one another, right? Because then it's not really independence, is it? When you see this echoed in the line from the Texas Declaration of Independence, because when you look at when the Texas Revolution was happening, Texas was not the only Mexican state that was in a revolt. And in a lot of these other places, it got crushed. And in a lot of the places, the other ones, they just kind of acquiesced to it. And so you see that line in the Texas Declaration of Independence that says, "We have come, therefore, to the melancholy conclusion that the Mexican people are incapable of self-government and unfit to be free." And it was a blasting condemnation against the people that effectively surrendered to the centralist powers and the subversion of their constitution. It was a big middle finger to those people to basically say, "Look, you are obviously lapdogs and you don't deserve to be free." So I would guess that they were probably not talking about the other places that were still in the midst of revolution, that were fighting back against Santa Anna. But, in general, that's what they were talking about. And so, that principle is essentially saying, look, if you're going to be capable of self-government, then you have to be capable of self-government. You'll hear, if you talk to Carrie, you've heard her probably say maybe from time to time, independence at home. Independence starts at home. Independence really starts with the individual. Self-government starts with self, right? And so are you able to govern yourself? Are you able to discipline yourself? Are you able to do the things necessary to realize that freedom, that liberty, that independence? And if you read that article, that essay, you'll know what the difference of those are. But really, self-government starts with self. So while we would be more than happy to reach out or to offer advice where it's needed, we absolutely will not go in and do it for anyone, right? So they're doing really well on their own. I don't know that they need anything from us other than what we can give, which is support from afar and trying to spread the word about what they're doing as far and as wide as possible. So there's that. All right. Thank you for that question. Somebody's having fun. I just so you know, whoever did this, I see this message in the Q&A tab. I saw your question in the Q&A tab. Okay. Here we go. Question: the push cards are a great tool, but has any consideration been given to making business card sized materials available? So I'm just going to say this to the people. You will know who you are. Did I not predict this? Did I not predict this very thing? Because so sorry, I had to spike the football there. That being said, yeah, it's been considered and rejected. I mean, because if we have push cards, those are normal and usual, and business cards, you can hand those things out. Look, you make your own business cards. Can't use our logo, but you make your own business cards with your own QR code on it. But we start producing business cards, and the next thing is, well, people are going to want full-size flyers, and then we're going to have posters, and then everything else, and then we've turned into a print shop and not an independence movement. So, it's been considered and rejected, but it may be revisited at some point based on demand. But I will tell you, demand does not equate to one or two people asking for something. Demand says it's considerable number of our people, a fair assessment, and then some decision to invest or donate toward that thing. And then, and only then, will we make the decision. Otherwise, we would end up with a bunch of Texas Independence onesies for infants, and patches that people don't get. So it's the reality. It's the reality of having to run a statewide movement where a lot of people have a lot of different ideas, and about 50% of them actually bear weight. So there we go. Will we consider it? Yes, we will consider it. I will bring it back up and we will have the conversation, but I cannot promise anything. Okay, let's check over here, see what we got. All right, here's one. This is from Bonnie S 1287 on YouTube. And it seems US and Mexico would try to take us over. Oh, this is a lovely opportunity to introduce you to something that is really near and dear to my heart and has saved me so much time. Here we go. And I will add this in. And I will swap this around because it looks weird that I'm looking at something else. There we go. Much better. All right. So let me introduce you to this. This is the TNM's website, thetnm.org. And one of the things that you're going to see is a cool frequently asked questions, and you're going to see all kind of topics, right? Myths and objections, right? You're going to find your answer probably in this section here. But that being said, I want to just draw your attention to this number 322. There are 322 questions and answers. Additionally, throughout this, you're going to, when you look at things like the plan and securing independence, you're going to find all kinds of fantastic resources. Like literally, here's all the research that we do. You're going to find objections. You're going to find all these things, right? But I would recommend that you start at the frequently asked questions on the website at thetnm.org. All across the place, you're going to find objections raised or myths like that one in particular about the U.S. or Mexico coming in and taking over. And frankly, the question comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of how the process works. So, once you understand how the process works, then you understand why those scenarios are they're just not going to happen. They're just not, right? But anyway, thank you for that question, Bonnie. Okay, let's get back over here to this one. All right. Here's a question. Should the Republic of Texas have nukes? I am a proponent that a future self-governing independent nation of Texas should have every means of defense at its disposal. Every single one, across every theater, every domain. I think Texas should have every defensive mechanism at its disposal, and that does include offensive weapons, right? Because sometimes defense is not the only the other half of defense is a counteroffensive, right? So this is just the reality of it. And so, does that include nukes? You're asking my personal opinion whether a future independent Republic of Texas should have nuclear weapons. My answer is absolutely yes. That's my personal belief. Others may differ, but because you asked me this question, then I'm giving you my answer. All right. Hey, bottom of the hour. For those of you joining us late, want to welcome you. If you still have a question, you have some time to get it in. We're running tight, but easy to do. You can drop it in the chat or the Q&A section on the Texan app, which is at texian.app, or you can find it in the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store. Go sign up. It's where all the Texians hang out. Additionally, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, or Rumble, any of those places where we are streaming, any of the pages or the accounts, it's easy. Just drop your question in chat and we'll be sure to get to it. You also have the ability to email your question. You will see it down here on the ticker. You can send it to Coffee Talk, all one word, at thetnm.org. All right. Where did I leave off? Oh, okay. Interesting. This must be a follow-up. It's like, yeah, this has got to be a follow-up. So here's the question. While allowed by the federal government, how can a Texas county/hospital refuse to issue a birth certificate to a child born here in Texas? That would effectively be the question that I think the federal courts would probably come down and say Texas can't do. But again, is it worth challenging the federal supremacy over those things? This side of independence, challenge them any chance you get. But we all know that the reality is that Texas only gets to control those things when we become independent. right? But you pose an interesting question, and it piggybacks off the answer that I gave to Chris earlier. That has been one of the ideas that's been floated, that Texas just simply passes a law that says the state will only issue a birth certificate in the instance that the citizenship or the status of both parents or the child can be proven, which is, I would suggest that perhaps they are just trying to rough out some ideas that lacks a lot of the detail that they're going to have, right? But look at, they're workshopping this stuff right now. They're trying to figure out how to formulate responses to what the federal government's doing, and it's going to be pretty futile in the end. So again, one of the reasons why we champion Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation, because that is the only way that you get control over those things. Okay, let's get down here and see. One more in the hopper here, and one more over here, and let's see what we got. And we have cleared the board over there. All right. Martha asked this question: what are your thoughts on the growing number of mosques popping up all over Texas? When you have a union that allows virtually unrestricted mass migration, what did anyone expect? I mean, we've only been shouting from the rooftops forever that Texas independence stops unrestricted mass migration. And while all these people, their solution was, let's go, send Joe Bob to Washington, D.C., or, elect Billy Bob as the congressman, or, let's send another fist-shaking resolution to Washington, D.C., we were here with the real solution all along, which is stop. If you don't want the fruits of unrestricted mass migration, then you will support Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation, where we will then control our borders and our immigration, and we can have our own immigration policy, and we can stop virtually unrestricted mass migration and therefore mitigate the damage that it causes. And it does cause damage: political, cultural, economic. It's proven. These are not my opinions. It's just the reality of what unrestricted mass migration does. And so we stood out here shouting it from the mountaintops to anyone that would listen. If you don't want these things to happen, it wasn't just there, right? It wasn't just unrestricted mass migration. If you don't want the fruits of uncontrolled federal debt, if you don't want the fruits of political corruption, just the list goes on and on. The answer was always Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation, because the sewer pipe, the head of the sewer pipe, went straight through the halls of Washington, D.C. And so how do you cut that off? You sever your connection with Washington, D.C. And so that was the solution. It's really that easy. This is not hard, but everyone wants to make it, not everyone, but everyone with a vested interest in preserving the power structure around Washington, D.C., wants to make this so difficult and wants to pretend like there is some solution to these things while still shackled to the federal system. And the reality is, there is not. There is not a solution to these things, right? You can speed up or slow down, right? But you will never fully mitigate all of the damage caused by one-size-fits-none policies coming out of Washington, D.C., outside of Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation. That's the reality of it. If you're in the Titanic, how fast is it taking on water? Well, we can stop it. We can slow it down, but you will never stop the Titanic from taking on water. It's just the rate in which it flows in, and you will never set the ship aright. That is a myth that politicians tell voters that act like children to help them sleep at night, right? It's a bedtime story to help placate the masses so they don't rise up with torches and pitchforks. That's the reality of it. It's an opiate. It It is to placate, to make people feel like that system, that they can still preserve what they understand the United States is and still get all these things fixed. But I want you to just think about it for a moment. Just think about it for a moment. When has any of this crap ever been fixed for good? Like with a period at the end instead of a comma, right? When has any of these things been fixed? They've never been fixed. They promise they're going to fix them, but they never do. This was the chief argument against, of all things, Dan Patrick and property taxes. They keep promising that they're going to give us property tax relief, but nobody feels relief. Oh, your property taxes are going down. Your property taxes don't go down. Your property taxes just don't rise at the rate that they did, right? So you take that on that scale right here in Texas and you blow it up by a factor of 10, and there you've got Washington, D.C. But all of the leaks in the ship that are caused by bad federal policy, they're not just, how are we going to pay for, the streets and things like that here. These are all things that put us in an existential crisis. These are things that have real costs attached to them, that cost not just current generations, but future generations. And I don't mean just cost in terms of dollars and cents. I'm talking about cost in terms of lives, in a decimation of our political and our cultural and our economic system and our way of life. The ultimate threats to prosperity and opportunity and strength, they invite disaster. And so we're in a position here where, like I have this question from Martha, what are my thoughts on the growing number of mosques popping up all over Texas? To not say, I told you so, I will say it this way. I informed you thusly, right? And I don't mean you specifically, Martha. This is aimed at a lot of these people, right? Maybe you're just now finding out about us, and if so, welcome. But understand, our track record has been warning everyone of what's coming. The impending political, cultural, and economic changes by our continued relationship, if you want to call it that, with the federal system. And the only way out is out. The only way to mitigate, to stop, to end the harms is to end it at the source. And that is by severing our relationship with the federal system, or at least redefining it on terms set by us, which is what we do as a self-governing independent nation. We get to set the terms of the relationship as peers and not as subordinates. And that's important. It's something for everyone to think about. If anyone else out there is worried about all of these effects, then you know what to do. You come join us. You make it to where we can accelerate our timeline for independence. And then all of these problems get solved. Then I won't see any more emails like this because you won't have to send them. Because we'll finally have the power to solve these problems ourselves. So anyway, thank you so much for your email, Martha. All right, let's get over here. Check one more place. All right. Look at that, folks. We are making lots of progress. All right. Last question. This comes from the Texan app. Question is, what's your answer to people who ask, what did our soldiers die for? That's an interesting question, because here's the thing. I can't speak for all of the soldiers. And I don't think that, because anyone who's asking this question is effectively trying to do that themselves, right? To speak for all the soldiers, to be able to discern their individual motivations. And so I just leave it at this, right? If someone were to ask me that question about what did our soldiers die for, I would respond with a question of my own. And it is, look at everything that's happening in Washington, D.C. and in the states that are allegedly united right now. And tell me, if you went to go ask any of those soldiers and showed them what's happening right now, do you think they would say that this is what they're fighting for? I mean, is that it? I mean, because that really is the question. And so, it's an unfair thing. What did our soldiers die for? You would have to ask them. And unfortunately, the dead don't speak, right? Maybe they can, maybe you can try to discern what their motivations were. Maybe they wrote something or they said something, but at the end of the day, that's a question that can only be asked by them. And I think it is a rather unfair question to ask. But I could say this. We can look back on some soldiers who have died and discern what their motivations were. The men at the Alamo being chief among them. Easy for us to discern because it was documented what they were fighting for. And Colonel Travis even wrote in not the super famous letter that everyone knows, but in another letter that was sent from the Alamo, he said, "Let the convention therefore go on and declare independence. For if they do, I will know and my men will know what we are fighting for. But if the convention does not declare independence, then my men will lay down their arms and surrender, but under the flag of independence, they're willing to peril their lives 100 times." So we know clearly from that writing that the motivation of the men inside the Alamo was independence, right? Would they look at us now and approve? I can't speak to that, but I know what their motivations were, and their motivations were independence. And I firmly believe that those same men would be on our side right now, seeking Texas independence. So I don't know that I can help you with that to answer that question, other than to point out that it really is truly an unfair question. But maybe the person that's asking it should be asked, what are you willing to die for? Is it this? Is it having some crazy transgender guy with his, in charge of the nuclear program like we had under Biden? Is it almost $40 trillion of debt that's going to be passed on to children and grandchildren? Is the status quo? Are you willing to give your life for that system? Is that what you're willing to do? Only individuals can answer that question. All right. Wow. That was a really good question. I'm going to be contemplating that question probably for days. So thank you to whoever submitted that. I really do appreciate it. All right, friends, that is a wrap for tonight. A reminder, I've mentioned it multiple times tonight, that last question came in on the Texan app. So you see, it's super cool. We're live streaming over there. There's full chat going on with all of our folks over there. And so, look, get the Texan app. Go to the website, go to Texian.app, or go to the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, get it downloaded. Join the movement for Texas independence. This is where we congregate. This is where we organize. This is where we act. This is where we connect. And all we're missing right now is you. Additionally, look, if you want some of those push cards or any other cool stuff like the mug that you see there that I've been drinking out of all night, head over to Texian Store, right? TexianStore.com. Get all your Texan and TNM themed items and merchandise. Fly the colors when you're out and about. I see posts on Texian all the time of the reactions that people get when they're just wearing the TNM shirts, right? The Texas Independence flag shirts. One of the biggest conversation starters, and it is how we identify people that are already with us but don't know it yet. Additionally, you heard me mention the Texan Partisan, the place where you can get all the news and views necessary to fill your day, your week with pro-Texas and pro-Texas independence information, analysis, articles, commentaries, you name it, organizational news, you name it, it's there. And if you were reading it, you saw a couple of announcements. One was a bit late, right? The wonderful news that Mac Duncan, many of you know Mac Duncan has been appointed our political director. He's working with the Take Texas Back program, the Texas First Pledge. He is running point on that now. And of course, the addition of Chris Bro, former member of the former member of the State Republican Executive Committee, joining us as our legislative director, who's going to be helping to run point on our legislative efforts in the next session, including the Texas Independence Referendum Act. So very excited. Go over there and read profiles on them and much, much more, right? There's a lot more than that. Okay, wow, we are already here. Well, friends, again, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight for Late Night Coffee Talk. Really just remember this. Set yourself a reminder every Thursday night, unless like I'm not here, which can happen. I'm here to answer your questions. In addition, when we're done, if you think of something during the week, you can go ahead and email it to coffeetalk@thnm.org, which you'll see down here. And like Chris emailed his in during the week, his question, and it gives me an opportunity to get to it, right? So feel free to email those questions in all throughout the week, or you can wait and just do it live, right? But I want to thank you guys so much, week in, week out. You're always here for me. Looking forward to our announcement about our new founding partner, new founding sponsor. Like I said, it's going to the announcement will happen before I'm here on Coffee Talk. But next week on Coffee Talk will be the first time this will be presented by them. So very, very excited and very thankful, and I can't wait for you guys to find out who it is. That being said, let's pull the plug on this bad boy. I am going to leave you with the words that I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.